Hey, you don't know me, but you probably do know that shotgun builds in Fallout New Vegas are some of the most powerful and fun builds you can make. With perks like Shotgun Surgeon and Stay Back combined with powerhouse weapons such as the Riot Shotgun or Dinnerbell, you can become a real menace to whatever faction you don't like. But what if you made a shotgun build with only the worst shotgun in the game? Can I beat Fallout New Vegas with only the single shot shotgun? Before I begin, let's go over the rules. First, I can only use the single shot shotgun as my weapon. I can use other weapons to repair the single shot shotgun or sell them off for caps, but other than that, single shot shotgun is my go-to. Second, I cannot use any companions to fight for me, as that would invalidate the difficulty of using a single weapon in my challenge. I can, however, use them to fulfill any purpose outside of combat, such as with quests. Not that I actually did this, though. Lastly, I must complete any GRA challenges that this weapon has, which only is the crippling right arms with shotguns challenge, so yay. And with that, let's begin the run. I was woken up by Doc Mitchell. He says I nearly died of being shot in the head. I told him my name was Blaster, decided I was blonde, and then decided my special stats. I opted for dumping charisma because I am a so-called free thinker. I then used all the points I had left to bring my intelligence, agility, and luck to 8. Intelligence for skill points, agility because that's what determines the base gun stat, as well as the reload speed, luck for better crit chances, gambling, and to give a boost to all stats. I kept strength at 5 because that's the strength requirement for the single shot shotgun, and the rest I didn't touch because I don't really know what I'm doing. This is my first time doing a New Vegas challenge run. I tagged guns for obvious reasons, repair, and survival. That last one I honestly wasn't too sure about at the time. Looking back, I should have picked medicine, but I'm only going to regret that when I do. Lastly, for my traits, I take skilled, because it is skilled, and fast shot. I wasn't concerned with the accuracy decrease thanks to the single shot shotgun having the second tightest spread of all shotguns in New Vegas. And plus, it's a shotgun. They're not known for being accurate. I then drop everything from the DLC packs. I think I might have kept something stupid like that. Raided the doctor's house, took a moment for fashion, and headed out into the wasteland. Sold everything I didn't need to Chet, went over to Trudy's house to claim my single-shot shotgun, and now the challenge begins. I completed the tutorial with sunny smiles, repaired Trudy's radio, and decided to side with the powder gangers. After one-shotting Ringo in the back of the head, I figured I'd change the difficulty settings from very easy to normal, because I didn't want this challenge to be boring. I tried to shake down Chet. I failed, and then I lied to the man that saved my life for extra medical supplies. That obviously succeeded. After leveling up and taking the rapid reload perk to increase my firing speed, it was time for the powder gangers to take over Good Springs. The good people of Good Springs took more than one shot each to kill, but they weren't too much of a problem for me and the shirtless men that backed me up, though mysteriously I couldn't find Doc Mitchell's body. Actually, I don't think I saw him die at all. Maybe he decided to bail out. Wouldn't blame him for that, honestly. After discovering a few locations, blasting some innocent coyotes that were minding their own business, blowing the head off an idiot, and showing two powder gangers a neat little party trick, I then decided to make my way to the NCRCF, to continue working for the powder gangers, of course. I spoke to Eddie, their leader. He wants me to take care of a traitor and a bounty hunter. They both were no trouble at all. In fact, the bounty hunter decided that the best option to deal with a guy with a wimpy shotgun was to pull out his knife. You know, when he has a better shotgun on him. Then Eddie wanted me to go to Prim and ask around about the NCR, so I did. I asked around town and got told by Jonathan Nash that the NCR was going to launch an invasion on the NCRF, and at that moment, I decided that I wanted in. But before I did that, I decided to help around town. I entered the Bison Steve Hotel and faced off against the convicts inside. I'll admit, they were definitely tougher than I'm used to. It took more than one shot to kill them, and it was here that I felt the single-shot shotgun's main weaknesses: attrition, range, and armor. Although this thing is a killer in 1v1 duels, it doesn't really fare well against multiple enemies. That combined with how spread out the convicts were, and the fact that they had single DT armor, the whole experience cost me almost all my shells. Luckily, the convicts inside were low level enough for it to not be much of a problem. In fact, their leader must have gotten some brain damage, because at one point, he decided to just run into the wall. Even after crippling in the head like how he hit an old TV, he decided to keep running in that exact same spot. Killing him at that state was more of a mercy now, which is why I kept shooting in his shoulder, to make his death as quick and painless, obviously. I then freed Deputy Beagle, only to kill him. There can only be one good-looking blondie in leather in this town. I then made the funny, sluggish robot in the casino town sheriff, thanks to the power of drugs. After that, I made it up to level 4 and took the educated perk for extra skill points for in the future. Now that Prim was as safe as it could be, I betrayed the powder gangers and raided the NCRCF. The troopers that accompanied me didn't seem to know where Eddie was, so I entered the building where he resided, took a few shots, realized I was about to be swarmed and cornered, so I brought all the boys and blew out. The fools had abandoned their attackable position inside their big building and exposed themselves to the squadron of troopers. It was only a matter of time before they all falled, although I did make sure to kill Eddie myself. That's what he got for using a confusing building as his base for operations. Afterwards, I made fun of an NCR trooper that had accidentally got himself fused with a desk and then got jump scared by a face that's all too familiar.
Oh gee.
After dealing with him, headed back to Prim, because the guy in charge of the assault mentioned that I should go back to the Prim and talk to the lieutenant stationed there. But when I came back, he seemed to have disappeared. Once again, it would seem that someone had given me the slip. I hope this doesn't become a recurring theme. Moving on, I headed over to the Mojave outpost. Along the way, I raided a Jackal Highway station and found out if you didn't immediately wipe out the metal armored ladies inside, they'll release a horde of tiny mantises at you. It wasn't a challenge, mind you, I just found it neat. Didn't know that before. Anyhow, I made it to the Mojave outpost. I did the ant clearing quest that everyone does, which got me thinking. If Fallout was realistic, there'd be entire wars that factions would have just against ants alone. I mean, ants are one of the only other species out there on Earth that have wars on their own. I feel like there's an untapped well of potential here. After that was done, I decided to head on over to the town of Nipton because Ranger Ghost wanted to know what was up with the huge bonfires they had. After shooting some more ants, getting level 6 in the shotgun surgeon perch, which should help with armored opponents for the time being, and completing the GRA challenge requirement, I made it to Nipton, where I gave Oliver Swanwick the death he deserved, I think, probably, and Voltpace told me about the atrocities he committed here. But honestly, the mayor who burned to death was a bitch. I stood in the flames myself and they didn't hurt at all. Fucking pussy. Anyhow, after completing 2 of the easiest quests in the game, I headed down to the road to Novak. While I was hiking down the main road, I noticed 3 NCR troopers that looked as if they were lost. I then watched as they got jumped by a group of raiders, but the soldiers were very well prepared. It was a Legion raiding squad that killed them. Anyhow, after I got to Novak, I helped Boone get his revenge and got told by Manny to do the Come Fly With Me quest. Not gonna lie, I don't really like this quest too much, so I'll just skip straight to the end. Those fools flew off to the great beyond, never to be a problem for the town of Novak ever again. I then started back on the road again. To the north, I killed some fire-breathing ants. I could handle their heat, but they couldn't handle the heat I was packing. Thanks to that extermination, I leveled up to level 8 and got the Bloody Mess perk.
Fun begins.
Moved on to Boulder City, where I talked down an angry private after accidentally disrespecting the Fallen, and paid the NCR to let the Great Khans go free. They then made the long final stretch to the Strip, waging war on the last ant colony and slaying the Queen. No longer will the ants terrorize the Mojave Wasteland. At least not until another colony moves in, that is. After messing around with some fiends and discovering a few locations, I made my way to Freeside and ignored everything there. Thanks to all the spare ammo and weapons that I've been selling all this time, I had more than enough money to make it in the Strip. That's not entirely true. I did stop to make as much cash from the Atomic Wrangler, and then I went on to the Strip. There, I entered the Tops, and did what I did to the Atomic Wrangler to them, but way worse, because afterwards, I blasted them all to Kingdom Come. Benny fought valiantly with Maria by his side, or I guess in his hands, but he was no match for me. I did die once in this affair, but it took almost all the chairmen to do so. Afterwards, I got level 10 and the Stay Back perk, which now means my shotgun build is complete. Any perks I get from here on out will not affect my damage output, except for anything related to crits or VATs. After shooting off the Tops, I went to Mr. House, delivered the Platinum chip, took a trip to his basement, and then killed him. I came equipped with pulse rounds for his Shakiratrons, but I probably didn't need them. Maybe they'll come in handy when I fight the Brotherhood of Steel. We'll see. Then I went to Ambassador Crocker to get started on the NCR questline. He sent me over to the Boomers to try and get them to fight for the NCR. Kind of felt weird that he sent me to deal with them first and not the kings, but what do I know? Making it past their artillery wasn't that hard. In fact, I didn't take a single lick of damage. They showed me to their leader, Pearl, an old bag who looks like she'd make a great food mascot for cookies or something. And honestly, something about their weapons rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it was as if they were implying something when they showed them off, while I only had my single-shot shotgun. So I killed all their leaders and left them forever. Now Crocker wants me to handle the kings. He tells me that Pacer is the only guy I need to remove him to get off the NCR's ass, so I decided to take a little trip down to Mormon Fort and learn about Pacer's allergies. Then I visited the kings, and found out that I needed a higher medicine skill than I had right now to do the cool thing that makes me feel smart. So, I decided to collect some debts and prostitutes for the Garrett twins, got the strong back perk at level 12, and collected the bounties on the fiend leader so I could finally put enough skill points into medicine that a magazine was enough for me to know how to do the thing. Side note, while I was raiding Driver 5's place, the NCR Radio Ranger followed me all the way over. He actually helped out a lot. Those fiends were getting harder and harder to kill. And side note. I then reported back to Crocker and visited Hoover Dam to start the For the Republic Part 2 quest. The Colonel wants me to deal with the cons, and I decided that I was going to convince them to go against the Legion. While on my way there, I ran into some Vipers, and really started to feel the single-shot shotguns fall off in power. Sure, if they have light armor and no helmets, they're easy pickings, but the leaders tend to have medium armor on top of decent amounts of health. Not to mention, being surrounded by people shooting at me makes my health drop very quickly. After that encounter, I made it to level 14 and got the jury rigging perk, because the perk shows Vault Boy repairing a single-shot shotgun, and I thought that was symbolic. Also, I decided to make a stop at Vault 13 and help the powder gangers there. Their leader, Cook, wants me to clear out some fire geckos in their basement. Not a problem. Bam! 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 What the? Bam! After that was taken care of, Cook told me to ask Papa Khan if they could join the Great Khans. Seeing as I was on my way there, I decided why not. At Red Rock Canyon, I talked to Papa Khan. He was keen on letting the powder gangers join them, not so much with allying the NCR. Not to worry though, his second in command, Reggie, pulled me aside and told me he'd be willing to ally with the NCR if he was in charge. So of course, there was only one thing to do: political assassination. I staked out at the outhouse right next to the longhouse that all the cons hang out in until Papa went out to take his daily shit. Popped a psycho and a stealth boy, and then turned Papa into meat chunks. Side note, right before I blasted Papa, he actually looked me in the eye and told me that shooting him was a bad idea, despite the fact that I was hidden. New Vegas being New Vegas, I guess. Anyhow, now that I got those side quests out of the way, I reported back to the Colonel to tell her the good news. Then I made my way to Caesar's fort. He wasn't happy to see me, but he was quick to forgive. First he had me blow up the Securitrons underneath his fort. No problem. Then, after telling him that the Boomers leaders were dead, he sent me off to enlist a White Glove Society into his legion. So I made my way back to the Strip, got banned from gambling at the other casinos on the way, talked to May Jury about and making an alliance with Caesar's Legion. She said no. So I talked to Mortimer and gave him the same offer. He said no as well.
Well, I've done all I can do.
Caesar wasn't pleased with my failure, but nonetheless he still sent me to take on the Brotherhood of Steel. Guess he wanted me dead after that. No matter, after marking Hidden Bunker on my Pip-Boy, I went around to everyone I could think of who sold pulse slugs, and while I was burning caps, I got some surgical implants for endurance, self-regen, and subdermal armor. I wanted to be as prepared as I could for the Brotherhood. Now at the bunker, before I went in, I pumped myself full of drugs and stormed the place. But let me tell you, this was the hardest part of the challenge so far. Even with all my shotgun perks and drugs, I still could only do decent damage to the Brotherhood Paladins if I shot their heads. And even then, I couldn't one-shot them like I've been doing with most enemies, even if I got lucky with a crit. The Paladins and Knights, on the other hand, could do massive damage with their Gauss rifles. However, I had another trick up my sleeve. Stim packs. Lots and lots of stim packs. So many stim packs. I used like 30 of them. But it was all worth the trouble. After going through just about every single Paladin, Scribe, and Knight in the Brotherhood of Steel, fighting for so long that my hand got all fucked up, I then went for the Cerberus' heads. First, Head Scribe Taggart, who ran straight into me, so much so that he was too close for me to shoot him. I had to let him run past me before sending him to the underground bunker in the sky. Next was Head Paladin Hardin. He was a little tougher, especially since he faced me with 2 other paladins. What can I say? The man was smart, but he was also bald. So he too died to my pulse slugs. Finally was Elder McNamara. He did the best he could muster, blasting me with his laser gun, but after nearly dying about 24 times to Gauss rifles, his pathetic lasers barely tickled me. I shot him once, and Ace and Stay Back activated, knocking him down to the grated floor. And with one last pull of the trigger, he too was slain. All that was left was to blow up the bunker, which I was able to do so after collecting all their keycards. Now that all the minor factions were taken care of for Caesar, he pulled me aside and entrusted me with a very important secret. He has cancer. He entrusted me with finding some medical supplies and also for me to personally perform surgery on him. So of course, when I returned with the medical supplies, he was already ready for surgery. He even laid down in his bed and fell asleep so I wouldn't have to use anesthetic. What kind? Unfortunately for him, that kindness was not paid back to him. He's dead. Caesar's dead. I killed him. I grabbed my shotgun by the barrel and slammed the other side against his head. Simple as. With Caesar dead, all that was left to do was to assassinate President Kimball. While I was on my way, I ran into an NCR hit squad. They died, but funnily enough, a young Cazador flew by and started attacking one of the Rangers. Despite that, he was completely focused on me. Anyhow, I decided to use their cool outfits as disguise for my mission. At Hoover Dam, my plan was simple. I'd wait in the middle of the crowd, pop a stealth boy, and when the president walks by, I shot him in the face. And it worked! After the president was dead, I ran for the hills and made it back to the fort. Oh yeah, I'm still disguised. So after killing the president again, I took off my disguise and then made it back to the Legion camp. And then it was time. It was finally time for the Battle of Hoover Dam. I'm not really sure if anyone really describes the assault on the dam itself in any Legion playthroughs. Most people don't really do Legion playthroughs for New Vegas challenges, so if you don't really know, it's pretty much just a reversed version of the NCR Dam Assault. Skipping to the General Oliver fight, this was one of the most difficult fights that I have ever had, and it's all because of this guy. But let's back up a bit. First was a maze full of NCR troopers. Not a problem, those guys die in either 1 or 2 shots. The problem was the labyrinth on the next level. The traps themselves weren't too bad, the only problem was 2 rangers running around. Now, there's one guy with a revolver, he's not a problem. He mostly just runs around and not doing anything. He isn't even listed as hostile until I shoot him. The main problem is that one of them, the other guy, has the anti-material rifle. That does a fuckload of damage. Normally I just shoot him from across the maze, but the problem is that I'm using a shotgun. And even if Stay Back activates and he falls, I don't have enough time to run up to him again before he gets up again and then runs away. I have to creep up to him and hope that he keeps falling over and over before he eventually runs away to another corner of the lair, because for some reason, despite wearing medium armor and carrying a heavy 2-handed weapon, he runs at full speed. And even then, I have to whittle down his health because of his decent armor. And I can't just ignore him either, because then if I do, he makes the next section that much harder. Speaking of which, the last floor. 6 heavily armored troopers and General Oliver himself. The General isn't a problem here. The issue is that even with me pumping every drug I've got into me, it still takes a dozen shots to whittle each heavy trooper down. And if that wasn't hard enough, remember that ranger with the anti-material rifle? Yeah, if he isn't dead, he just follows me up here and kills me. So, after using up all my stim packs, dying about 3 times, and John New Vegas crashing the game because of how disappointed he was in me, I decided to try a new approach. I noticed that if I peeked in the corner while crouching, I'd be able to get a sneak attack crit on the ranger. Then I tried popping a stealth boy and sneaking my way over to him. And it worked. Kind of. It still took a million shots to finally end him, but at least he wasn't going to fuck me up anymore. And to ensure that no more shenanigans happened, I snatched my anti-material rifle off his corpse so that no one would get any ideas. Finally, it was the top floor again, and this time I decided to use the pulse slugs that I've had on the heavy troopers. I honestly didn't think it would work because the salvage power armor is canonically just a bunch of metal stuck together with no training needing to wear it, but apparently pulse weapons still work on them. Must have been some kind of oversight from the developers having to make this game in 18 months or something, but I'm not complaining. I guess the heavy troopers must have been confused as I was, because they all ended up having poo brain and splitting up, meaning that I was having a much easier time taking them all out one by one. Eventually, Oliver and his men were all dead, and I completed the challenge. So, can I beat Fallout New Vegas with only the single-shot shotgun? Yes. This challenge really ramped up in difficulty at the end with the Brotherhood and Hoover Dam segments, but overall it was pretty fun. This is my first time making a challenge run video, so I'd appreciate it if y'all would like and subscribe. Leave a comment and share with your friends. It really helped me out as a first-time YouTuber. Also, feel free to leave any suggestions for any videos you'd like to see in the future. But until then, I'm the Corruptist, and I'll see y'all next time.